Uh, I know when I'm about to sit and start streaming for the beginning of this, and this scene right there, I finally encountered. So, welcome back to Togainu Team True Blood. We're on Walkthrough 11. Yeah, we're kind of running late because we're hungry as hell. On the top of note on that, we are now beginning of, and previously, I'm finished multi route. I'm so tired of this. I'm so tired of this route. It's giving me trust issues. I'm so sick of goddamn sick of it. After so whining all the time in this 1 to 10 walkthroughs, hello, this welcome back. You're just in time for I unlocked the certain route. The toxic yaoi arc. So now we're now beginning Shiki's route. It's about time. I just want to be sufferable. Since I replayed PSP on Japanese version of PSP on this one. So anyway, back to this scene. Okay. I know that here's the scene I thought. This is the new scene from this one. Since you complete Keisuke Rin Ultimate, you have to do that in this order. So I'm gonna meet his gaze. Yeah, I'm almost still eating. Meet his gaze. Sweat spit into his palm, and his fellows drew that his blood is flowing backward. Every nerve of his body was crying out in the warning. The longer he stares into those red eyes, the deeper the intense light seems to draw him in, beginning to consume him.
Those seduce me gays.
I know everyone's a fan favorite of this one. According to it. He was voiced by Hikaru.
So obviously his birthday was passed.
Well, happy birthday now, Hikaru-san. I kind of warmed this up for the save. Baby for Bomo. But the save is over. Anyway. But he refused to move away. Even in a moment, clenching his teeth, he glares right back. Averting his gaze with what admitted defeated a voice somehow inside to tell him so, without a doubt. He spoke. His words remnant of invitations, but the man did not show any further signs of the aggressions. Instead, he had forcibly pushed back against Akira's knife, paling into the withdrawal. I remember that episode 1 he showed up. It was kind of a little early at that point. He killed entirely in the anime. Please note that I watched anime 1 to 12. Akira's arms at least releasing from the tussle rather than even from the string. The man casted a sideways glance at Akira. His eyes are cold as stone, and then the opponent pool as it considered to beat him. In that moment, Akira stood as made this intimidating figure, processing the unmistakable strength of his objects. The man stares at Akira in silence for a while, but eventually, he turns on and he sees. Hey, Frey. I'm playing True Blood, the toxic arc. And almost eating wings and fries. Black-clad figure once again emerged in the alley. Shadows and an advantage. The thrill of the pursuit never crossed Akira's mind. He knew his being utterly outmatched and he fell in his bones. Never before this encountered such an overwhelming strength. Could it have been the man they call Shiki? So I have been left in a sense of the defeat or overshadowed by the surge of the exhilaration. Quiet as excitement, it's like they never known what it felt but what it keeps the heartbeats thundering loudly. So I'm skipping what Ari's seen this so far.
Yeah.
So Ari skipped the scene so far.
Charlie said she's gonna do like an hour, so.
Okay. Um, stay silent. Ari seen it.
Hey sis, can you do True Blood on Wednesday?
Okay.
Next Wednesday? Yeah, I'm going to work.
Well, okay then.
I'm so sorry.
If I must.
I'm doing it. I'll go.
Okay. So everything's going good. So I'll keep going. I gotta ignore it. If there's a new scene.
Nice. I'm still continuing NTE that I best have. There's no story update.
Okay. Let me save. Okay. Okay. I'm on a new scene. Okay, here I go. Yeah, good luck. Now, Kira. We can commemorate our battle to the death. Who shall we attack? Akira. Push back the skip button. Phase out of existence. More accurate for me. Okay, back to this. Since I already know that scene, I have to save the following dialogue. Here it goes. Akira suddenly realized what it had been so familiar. Akira suddenly realized what has been so familiar. It happens to the other man too. The superhero man has also suddenly started running in agony after attacking him. One could have brushed it off in a mere coincidence, but something about it felt off. The man's eyes has been clouded as well. If it was a side effect of Rhine, that could be explained to be some degree. Yet, for some reason, that didn't feel right. There's something be more to do it, but it is all Akira that had to go on a hunch with no concrete evidence. Stumbles and Akira lets out a small sign and quietly got it to his feet. Quickly got it to his feet. As he thought of this blessing, the fate of the sensations in his body began to resurface. His joints had throbbed, radiated discrete heat. He bit his lip as a cloud of blood. After the light lick, he wipes out it all on the back of his hand. His arms were especially painful. Bruises had swollen from the target to many trips. He tried to move his arms up and down. They didn't seem to have been broken, so he punished himself off to the wall and began to walk. Then he sensed the princess entered the alley entrance. Stop the boarding. Akira pushed back his against the nearby the wall and headed to the breath. Oh.
No! I'm scared. Reading the footsteps.
barely unable to see him, and they headed to his direction. The battle with Takara has left Akira exhausted, and then I thought I was going in another round. Wasn't a doubt to the, but if Akira was spotted, he would be at a little recourse. His hand was on a knife at his wrist. Akira constantly tries to track to his opponent's presence. To his right at his dead end, the pilot had to remember the crumble of concrete. To his left, a pale figure seems to emerge from the shadows. His presence was otherworldly, like some of the swords of the specter. This seems to chill down his spine. But another closer expressions, the pale figures appeared to the living man, waffled to his feet, firmly planted on the ground, unarming any nudge that goes to the origin. His hair was golden hue. His skin is deathly pale, and his eyes, in pale blue, his little circumstances was assistance a fainted presence almost about his he was bleeding into the background. The man lingers at his entrance of the alley, just gazing at Kira's directions. Through the perhaps the gaze wasn't the best way to describe it. It was that he was just happy to took his way, looking at any other nothing in particular. The man seems completely devoid in any life. Feeling creeping unease, trickling in the pit of the stomach. Akira tensed up and ever so slightly. After a while, the man slowly started to walk deeper into the alley. A wave of anxiety hits Akira. There is nothing to be found. It has been a dead-end alley. So why would the man walk this way? One step, and then another, with a stride as the trended clouds. The man approaches. The figure felt almost unbearable. It was eerie. Wasn't it still time for him to escape? But now that Ali left him with a few options. Could he just body check the stranger to make it a break for it? The man in the presses ever closer, making the anxiety creeps down Akira's neck. He knows that the man was carrying a small briefcase in one handed. It was hard to make out of the darkness, but it appears has been blown, aged, and worn. Oh, it's him again. The man was now close enough that Akira couldn't touch him. Whether he to reach out, but it is abruptly stopped in his tracks. Even up close, the man colors were the fainted in watercolor paint. Glared by drizzle, his eyes were glassy, breathed and simply reflected Akira's figures back to the world. Perhaps it was the trick of the light, but when the man blinks, his eyes occasionally appear a vivid purple. The man was motionless, his eyes fixed on Akira. It was unsettling. Akira knew they had to get away as fast as yet he couldn't look away, captured with those empty eyes.
染まるあるいは染められる色は一つではない
His voice was calm, gentle, yet cold, in a completely flattening tone. The words it seems melted his ears, floating seamlessly into his brain. Yet, he did not just understand the meaning of them.
交わりかぶさり飲み込む時には内側からにじむお前はどうなのだろうな
His long eyelashes fluttered, lifted each blink. Once more, Akira knows that a shade of purple within the purple of his eyes. It's really fellas.
He was not of this.
None of this were.
そして俺もまた
Kira, frozen by the other persons, felt it is something and softly pushes his hand. He runs into the gaze downward, only to notice that it has been handled in a leather briefcase.
もうすぐ男が来る。
男？
A man?
これを渡してほしい。
I wonder. The man's fingertips touches Akira's hand in his. He grabs it at the briefcase handle, then slowly slid over to his knuckles. His touch was cold as ice, yet incredibly smooth. Akira almost forgot it to the brief for the moment. The other man's eyes were still transfixed on him. Why? How? Who? All the questions he wanted to ask dissolved his throat and when he locked his eyes with the man. Their hands parted to let the man droop, eventually turning to the beginning and walk away. Okay. Bye. As he walked through to the dream, and stared out the figure drifted away into the shadows. Will we get to another encounter him this time again?
So, is that not concerned the hell out of me?
Cold, pale eyes of this person, huh? Sir, your terminus is open. You're attracted to the hungry talking to the sucker on the top of this your area. Oh boy. My goodness, this little you made my day. Anyway, stabbing him before his days, Akira realized he was distracted at the spot of the man and had disappeared from his sight. The dreamlike cessation and the floating lingers, yet did not prowling in his heart, merited to bring him back to the stark reality. He took a deep breath, let out slowly, and then shut his eyes. While he felt the world is finally returned to normal, he exhaled then opened his eyes again. The narrow alley was the darkest than ever, even at night, and everything was just as it had been. Relaxing his body, Akira slowly leans back against the wall. Who was that man? Yeah, I already know I'm not gonna say a spoiler.
We can call it unknown.
Yeah, that's the name that it was. That's unknown. That's for the game intro beginning of this. Anyway, the hard leather of the briefcase entrusted to remind him that it was no dream. He'd been instructed and handed over of the man who would be there shortly. However, he saw no real reasons that he had to request of a stranger. Perhaps it was better not to get involved. With it, I thought. He placed the briefcase against the wall and told him to leave the alley. But then, quite give it away to the sound of footsteps, quickly sharper and rapidly drawing near. Could this be the man the stranger spoke of? Days of the lingering after effects of the dreamlike atmosphere. He missed his chance to leave. The footstep was closed into the alley's past. A tall shadow emerged into the alley entrance, grabbing in black, as thought heaping a crave out of the darkness himself. Upon those of Akira, the man paused it briefly, but quickly started to walk it again down the alley. When the man was finally close enough for him to make out his features, his eyes were wide. The man in the black coat firmly heads to the katana, one in hand, his red eyes and has quite a fear as it gleams to them. Ah! Oh man.
I said that's not how to pay. You jump scared me. What the fuck, man?
Oh, I'm gonna clip it. It's funny. It's funny. It's funny. Jump scared. Good one. Anyway, apparently, Shiki. Every nerve of his body stood it on edge. There is no place to him to escape, nowhere to run. Shiki's approaching with him in an unwilling straight to halt to the only arms streaming away from him. Was Shiki the briefcase received? If so, if he should have just left the briefcase and gotten out of it, he could. That's what I know. Give it to me with the briefcase mentioned. Shiki's red eyes locking into the curiosity through him. He spoke. He spoke, everyone. Uh-huh. The unknown briefcase. Does this belongs to? I don't know. His tone wasn't unshakably attractive. The clearness of his voice pierced through to his hair, almost making it shivers. Clearly, this is the man with the suitcase. I was right. I was right about the briefcase thing. Shiki gave a little bit of curious face down to his feet and then to the briefcase, which is to proceed to lift off the ground. He was silent for a moment, staring at the briefcase, then, and suddenly, remembering this, he hastily checked inside, and the bottle of frowning. Damn. Jazz, these translations is good. Props to that. I'm scared, everybody. Through his voice was harsh and suppressed. Suppressed the anger that spills the forth with a fiercity that sharp the contrast in his cold interior. Shiki was with an irritated click of his tongue, shot at Kira at a glare. Suddenly, Kira shook his head. No. I don't know what you're talking about.
そんなのこっちが聞きたい
With a look at the sheer annoyingness, Shiki seized Akira by the collar. He slammed it against the wall, and impacted and vibrated through his back. Then, before he catches his breath, he felt something cold press up against his throat. That's not good.
ここで見たことはすべて忘れろ。あの男の言葉だ。
A white blade. The tip of the needle gleamed to the moonlight, seems in the place of the tears of the flesh of his slightest motion. Blade still at his throat. Akira glanced up at Shiki. Shiki's eyes were red, cold and annoying. He will intimidate that Shiki was sinking to the blade of his throat when he did disobey. Yet it all felt terribly unfair. It is not only what he wanted to be involved in any of this. To say he wasn't scared would it be a lie? But he has no intention to meekly submit this man's whims. He couldn't stand his type. The type of the belief that it could have been everyone there by dress alone. Akira welling up that energy. He couldn't even feel the pit of his stomach, glares at the Shiki's defense.
あんたに命令される覚えはない。ならばここで死ぬか。
Shiki well sharpened the lip, twisted it into sneer. The cold blade pressed against his skin, and a dull pain flickered across Akira's
死
throat.
ぬのは怖いか。見逃してやらんでもないぞ。泣いて許しを請えばな。
If that was the only way, then Kira thought of the defeat the
だ
preferable.
ったら殺せばいい。
Then try me.
Start to be like, suck on me, bitch.
I dare you. That's all what Momo said. I dare you. Anyway, his words were spoken into a pure impulse. There was no considerations for the consequences. Shiki's narrowed his eyes slowly.
開き直って自ら死を望むか。
その方がまだいい。あんたに命乞いするくらいならな。
I'd like to see you try. There was a tension. Shiki was perhaps the most inferior man in Negra. Even so, no. Perhaps because of that, Akira refuses to submit to this man who's act as if everyone owed him their obedience. For the fleeting moment, something else flickered behind those murderous red eyes. The sensation of cold steel pressed up against the throat and relaxing into the next instant. Damn! The sword was hit and struck him squarely and forceful to track his body, reeling in an impact. As he fell into the ground, unable to embrace himself, Shiki uttered one of the single chilling words.
バカ。
By the time Akira sat up, Shiki was already faded into the darkness. Recrased the alleyway, his clothes floated behind him. Before long, the sound of the footsteps faded away, and in still the night began to engulf Akira's surroundings once again. Akira found himself frozen into the ground, half of the shock of the being he'd taken. As time passed, the pain of his chicken began to grow. He slowly stood up while pressing the back of his head against the red-hot cheek. Any fear of the long sentence vanished, and then he replaced it with nothing but sheer rage boiling up the pit of his stomach. He didn't particularly care about the other people's business, but getting the pushing around was a different story. That wasn't right. He couldn't just stand and be controlled like this. He took a deep breath and exhaled as he to rid himself of the pit of irritation in his cheek. The feeling of the cold blade still lingered on his throat. As he stared to walk out of the alley, he tried to his best to shake off the nagging and the frustration. How were Shiki Dada's mysterious man connected? Shiki Digest was hard to miss. When he opens the briefcase, what had been inside of it? Did it matter? Did it even matter? This was all, after all, something Akira Wanson has no part of. After awkwardly slipping through to the narrow alley, he walked along the slightly wider the road before ducking into the abandoned buildings. Time was in he senses when it comes to this search for Kesuke, but it didn't do any exhausted himself. He needed rest. It was the only thing all the while. Uncomfortable sensation of the blade pressed against the throat. Lingers no matter how much times have passed. If only the survivor makes him angry. Stepping into the building, he found a spot of the entrance, leaning against the wall in a heavy sign. Closed his eyes. Once settled the fatigue, began to permit his every part of his body life rising the tides. Memories of Thirda fell through his mind, but his muttered consciousness couldn't just handle the efforts but ponder them. In a blink, he fell asleep. No dream in any kind interrupted his rest. That's something else.
Yeah.
Okay, so I already know that
最近
scene.
タグ取り目的じゃないイグラと関係ない殺しが連続で起きてるけどさ、今回もそいつの仕業か？
さあな、何しろ犯人見たやつがいないって話だからな。
Okay, I already know that scene.
Sorry.
Oh, fuck off! I already know that you're underage. I don't care. I already know. Okay, new scene. Good. Okay, nice. New scene.
Thank God you're about to say something, sis.
I know about to say something crap like that. It is what it is.
Yeah.
The sky was wrapped in a deep dark black. The moon is only occasionally peeked through the gap of the clouds. After the storm of anger and anxiety had subsided, he was left out only in fatigue. He stumbled against the wall in the alleyway, gazed up to the sky. Akira's eyes glanced in the mirror and just witnessed. He was too tired to think of everything anymore. I know why. I already know that. Suddenly I heard a commotion. It was far from him. Perhaps the eager participants and had changed his balls and surrounded by the crowd, egging them on. Akira didn't care. It seems like it had been that far removed from him, as if it were locking down through somewhere high up into the clouds. With his already taut nerves, he found that it begun to hypersensitive if any sound of the size of vocalization. The din that it seems to draw in the air confused he straightened out of his back of the trend of his ear and he knows. Where's it coming from? Right behind him? If they were to imagine it will be a strange noises moving like this. He slowly get back to his feet. A swept appearance and running through the back alley. The sense of the foreboding crept in upon him. Knowing this better than to get out there, he headed to the rifle and tried to step away. But just as he made the move, he realized the person was already right behind him. He turned abruptly. The man looms in the entrance in the alley opposite from he was the head. The tall man clad with a black. Oh God, I know.
Oh no, it's a dog, right?
Yeah, correct. That meant in the commotion. He heard it a moment earlier there was no match. Shiki stood still, suddenly fixing his gaze upon Akira. Akira's heart pounded like a frantic drum, and his breath caught in his throat. He was already worn down. He had no energy to spare against his new threat. As he seems right through Akira's nerves, Shiki's began to walk slowly towards him, step by step. The sound of the horseshoes echoing through the silent street. He was to make a mad dash into the other way. Perhaps Iwo could have escaped, and perhaps Shiki wouldn't have pressured his strongly considered the options. But he couldn't get his legs to move. Once again, he found himself transfixed in those cold red eyes. The harder look of their command on itself telling him not to disobey. The footfalls creased he caught and defended the sense of the blood. The gaze of fixed at him in a practically pathetic, but Akira couldn't tear his eyes away. Was it they were just in their place? Shiki's red eyes narrowed to ever so slightly.
この間の雑魚か。
Suddenly, Shiki grabs by him by the jaw, caught off guard. He reflexively seizes the hand and held it to his chin. Shiki curls his lips in a smirk, tightening his grip. Akira grimaced. The pressure felt like it might shatter
苦
bones.
しいか。
Oh god. His voice was like ice. Akira wants to snap back to the demand that Shiki release him, but there's not a word. Could it escape his lips? Why did the others head into his jaw? Shiki roughly shoves him back, and Akira's back is swimming against the wall behind him. The man gazed and cut it into the deck.
ふぬけた顔を晒すな。目障りだ。
His words struck into the flames in the anger once more. If he was such an eyesore, then why did this pass him by? Or at least cut him down and get it over with. That's what I'm saying. Cut him down and get it over with. I was about to say something.
あんたにそんなこと言われる筋合いはない。
Akira scowled at him, meaning his glare is equal to forcefully. He knew that it had taken him as reckless. He could have just kicked himself either. Shiki's contemplated Akira silently for a moment. The coldness in his eyes, enough to give him chills. Suddenly, seized by the arm, Akira was falling back to his feet. With his face controlled in pain, Shiki his grip is musty strong, particularly Dragman's alongside of his wrist.
離せ。
Where are you gonna take me?
黙れ。
Where are you gonna take me? Why? Why should Shiki take him? Confused? Panic? If he could have just his feet. That's faster than he can sub Shiki's stride. The fingers of his wrist seems to hold on. There we go. Seems to have grown into his flesh, brought it down into by very bone, and the sheen of the sweat of the form in his brow, and there was nothing he could do to stop him. Where did she be taking him? He couldn't even put more a guess. Crossing what he thought it was the east side of the main street. There entered the alley, along with the north side. Lost in the storm, at the thought of the unable to keep a track on his bearing of his alley, bled into the next, until eventually leads to the look at the empty lot. It fails a lesson of the aftermath of the war, and more than enough, something that has always been there here is torn into the ground, leaving nothing of the concrete fragments of the scattered the skeletons. The center of the town seems the distance from here. Around the invisible lot where the lush is a greedy seems it has been also dried into the stood at the side, went into the trees. She gets commands and tosses him into the middle of the empty lot. Ow. He hit the ground on his side. His wrist finally releasing from the swollen red and hot. As Akira tried to get up and sharpened a gust of the wind in his face. Looking up, he saw Shiki drawn to the sword, pointing it straight to his throat. Oh, new
あの時
CG.
なぜあの場所にいた？
Whoa.
貴様は何者だ？答えろ。
He was speaking when the man that leads to the front of his briefcase.
あの男を知っているのか？
Kira didn't feel like answering. What did he just stand in agreement if he did? Seems Akira resolved the red eyes, boring into his soul narrowed slightly.
口を聞かないなら吐かせるまでだ。
The blade metal inches closer to his throat.
さっきまでの威勢はどうした？それとも死ぬのは怖いか？だったら雑魚なりに悪あがきの一つでもしてみせろ。
He made no attempt to hide his ridicule. Every word of the action of the man made it Akira feel more intense. Like an oil into the burning fire, his words is made of flames of the resentment and the rays of the
あ
higher.
の男について知っていることを話せ。知らない。
Swelling from his nerves, Akira slowly shut his lips.
知らないものは知らない。もし何か知ってたとしても、あんたにだけは話さない。それに、あんたに殺されるぐらいなら、
Huh?
舌噛み切って死んだ方がまだマシだ。
What?
そうか。
Shiki's folded his crow's eyes now, and a smile played for the corner of his
なら
lips.
ば今、この刀で自ら喉をかき切るのはどうだ？そのまま喉を押し付けて引けば終わる。簡単だ。俺は一切手を出さん。
The sword of cold at the tip of his now pressing firmly against his neck, and he could feel it sharpening and radiating out of his skin. What was supposed to be some kind or test? Suddenly, a thought went across Akira's mind. Was he afraid? Scared of death. Self-doubt enveloped him, much as if the cold air wrapped through his like a street of ice. Could it be bring himself to lean forward to slit his throat? He wasn't sure. Was it even fear the grip of his now that even the press of the death? Or was it something different altogether? He didn't know. But there was one thing he did know for certain. He would have never been into the man's whims. If anything, being treated like him, he treated like he was a less than a human or flames of the anger higher. This is what the man was regard all those around him a little more than insects. Even the death was the only option, but he wouldn't let this man have to the pleasure of it or kill him. In one of the swift motion, Akira yanked to the knife in the wrist, halted the stroke of the sword, held to the throat. It was the act of depressions of demand of the suicide. But this submission is not an option, but there's only a course under the fight back, and the odds were in his favor. He knew his inclination to almost zero, but still, he had to do something. Huh? What happened? However, it's not what he expected. When a shred of the sound of the metal of the recoil of the knife of the cure speechless. Shiki had close into the slash of the throat of the blocks in the knife. instead of the blade was cleanly knocked aside. How? It seems unconceivable that Shiki, possibly the strongest fighter in the Toshima, would have been failed to block such a despise the half-baked attack. But he had, and Shiki his sword and pushed it aside and looked down at Akira expressionlessly. He had been intentionally allowed to the Akiras to succeed. If so, it would just piss him off more. That's not good. That's not good, Akira. He tried to raise the kick in his stomach, sent him trembling back to the ground. Without mercy, Shiki summoned it down to Akira's head to his heel, pinning it to the earth to carry it away in agony.
土壇場になったやけでも起こしたか。
うるさい。
雑魚はやはり雑魚だな。無駄なあがきだ。
あんたの言いなりにはならない。
Shiki's grounded his heels down harder. The pressure wasn't unbearable. Akira's headed to the throbbing. He felt like his skull. Bobby actually gets crushed. His sweat trickled down to the ground, pulling the beneath his cheeks. Clenching his teeth, he endured the pain of the best he could until at least once. The pressure of despair. Without a moment, it catches his breath. The boost of his heel struck his cheek and then upwards arc.
貴様にはこれで十分だ。ふぬけな。
Even as pain sets every one of his nerves, a blaze of Shiki's voice pierces the ears loud and clear. Shiki have even in need to use his katana. He affected more than pain. Inside Akira, something just snapped. Tossing the knife aside, he forced himself into his feet. He couldn't throw himself at Shiki. Even thought that he was staggered from the bolt of his gut. After all this, there is no place to try to condone anymore. He already been humiliated. All that was left was to channel his rage. Somehow, in the deals with Shiki, no way than another. Having rushed in unprotected, Akira was hit into the punch into the solar plex. Despite the pain, he tries to throw another punch and then Shiki caught it in his fist. One of them yanks it down sharply. He collapsed into the earth. Shoulder fist first and the balance of the completely forfeited, struggled to stand. The echo of the last blow that it got sensed in the wave. Noshing and surge and throw him, forcing him to turn away and expel his content into his stomach.
どうした？もう終わりか。
Shiki's words were dripping them with contempt. Lifting his mouth with his back of his head, Akira looked up at Shiki and glared at the string that he couldn't muster. Even if he knew they forced the poor upon the ground, even if he knew that he stood a chance whatsoever, he would not surrender. Shiki turned, his coat flipping over behind him, and paused to get glancing back over his shoulder at Akira.
殺意をたぎらせるくらいがちょうどいい。二度とふぬけた面を見せるな。
His tone was sharp, but it was the fragments and shattered the blade. And once he was done, he walked away without any other word. As his foot falls, echoed to the face, Akira slowly forced himself upright. You good? Overwhelmed with the surge and emotion that threatened to tear him aside, he was struck to the earth with his fist of the arm, trembled as the blood itself the boiling. The despite of his strength is more than clear. Shiki couldn't just kill him right there, and then he was a so desired. So why did he? He was just acting more on the man whims. Raging once again started to the boil inside of him and effects on him. Retrieving the knife and tossed it aside, and he secured it back into the sheath. He realized it was just how much he had emotions overtake him. He'd been so mad. The knife that has been feeling horrendous, and the links of that Shiki without any plan, without any tactic. He allowed indignation and anger alone. Everything about the situation influenced not just Shiki. His character was in the own actions as well. The night was so slightly come to the end of the dawn and began to break. How boring and left over the bitterness. He could have just swallowed it to find the egg of the body of the rose of his feet. Seeking to the heart of the city, he began to walk through the streets, forbidding in the dim of the light of the dawn. Damn. Yeah. I already know this scene because I need to get back to I need to talk to Shiki again once more. I already know. I might as well go back to see him again. Speaking of the devil, the executors are coming. However, even on that he couldn't do anything about it. It felt a little surreal. As I thought of the person the executors nearby was, no matter how someone else was worried about, not him. Oh God. I'm scared.
なんか匂う匂う匂うよななあジジイなんかいるよ
Two twines in the shadows stretched across the alley. Even in the distance, at the optics of the payable, the blond man, dizzy and producing the same authority chuckled.
シキティ追っかけてたらウサちゃん見っけ
Oh boy. I'm scared.
ああ、お前か。前にも見たことあんな。
もろくしたのかねえあらおじいちゃんクソライン含有率ゼロの 100% ピュアラビットだろうがよ
The insecure is loudly bouncing her back and forth, edging her closer to Kira steps by steps. Oh man. Finally, sensing the unease of the situation, Akira took a deep breath, handled it in, and tried to make it his retreat. Throughout the escape, it seems beyond unlikely that at this point, he's already been noticed, after all, at the alley under the single. Not in the path, it wouldn't have taken long to catch him up to them. It was basically hopeless.
ウサちゃんどうしたの巣穴に戻りたいのかなぴょんぴょんって泣くんだっけウサおい知事ウサってよどうやって泣くんだよ
Clarification, everyone. These two executors are cut out of this one. Just letting y'all know.
知らねえよ。
Yeah, they got continuity because if you play uncensored, this is what happens. I got trauma.
使えねえ物知らずな年寄りなんざてんで使えねえただの人間の化石になりかけな物体に過ぎねえじゃねえか
Get this actor some credit. Not gonna lie. I cannot be mad because I still love the actor so much. Clarified. Hint, hint.
うるせえよクソヒューマン。ああ、ウサギにさ聞きたいことがあるんだけどさ。
He wanted to hustle the steels of the pipe and into his shoulders. He curled his lips into the ludicrous smile. His sharpened canine teeth gleams in the mechanic.
青猿やったのお前か。そこでちょっと死んでたみたいなんだけどさ。
Toguro was dead. He hadn't seen his corpse. The stench of the dead obscured is now intense in the air. Suddenly come back to the full force. Blinking curious mountain the taste of the iron. Throughout the day he knew it wasn't his head. All it was in the head. Still, his limbs intense and his vision blurred white.
まあ、ウサギがやったかどうかはどうでもいいんだけどな。
そんなことよりさ。
Gunslinger hangs his mouth wide open and it thrusts into the claws. Either side, if it's trying to one of the Kira.
遊びたいっつうかさ。例えば鬼ごっことかさ。
どっちが鬼だよ。ウサか。
ジジが逃げるのもいいけどな。負け犬みたいによぼよぼ逃げんのかよ。でも今日は追っかけたいだろ。ウサのプレプレ尻尾プレプレだぜ。
ああ、そうだな。
The insecurity shut up on a chill smile at the gates and the honor that Akira like hunting in front of the paw. Oh, we gotta run. We're gonna run as fast as we can. With no time to lose, Akira took off and running, and the bullets fired in the gun.
逃げろぴょんぴょんフリフリの尻尾でさ。
Yeah, I'm about to run like hell. ASAP.
ほらほら追いつくぜ。あ
What? What now? What now? Oh God. What now? What now? Shiki had blood guns in his claws and then his katana.
ついでにシキティもみっけ。
That's a good nickname, which means he's a cat. If you don't want to reference what he said about the direct reference is always indulgent, he is a cat. Shiki is a cat in this one. Trust me, I read it all the time.
2頭おったら両方ゲットってな。
The insecurities grinned and bared his fangs in delight. Shiki is the one swift in emotion, fully prepared of the Gunsar's claws and then leaped it back.
そいつお前の仲間か。
No, we're just acquaintance. Trying to kill me.
シキティとウサかよ。
And now I'm a rabbit. You know, in fact, I'm a fox. You know that.
こいつには用がある。
Sharp prism eyes started Akira. Kiwana hustled an iron pipe into his shoulders, began to casually bouncing on it up and down.
まあさ、遊んでくれるならどっちでもいいよな。
シキティなかなか捕まんねえんだもんな。
いくらのバカどもばっかだとよ、腕が鈍るんじゃねえのか。なあ。
Oh, good. CG? That's cool. But then Kirana's pressing into the iron pipe and then surging forward. But Shiki's blade deflected to the sharp flame.
ジジばっか釣りんだ。
With the piercing stricken into the cleave to his heavens, Gunslinger was swept to his hook and the claws was Shiki. Only the sound of them was meeting with, however, it was that of claws whooshing and harmless through the Shiki effortlessly dodged an attack and countered the sword and slashed in his own. Damn! Damn! Revealed too much? Gunzo was with this, raised to the claw's arms. He sent to the sword and catched it between his blades and slipped it aside. With that other arm, he thrusted the tip of his hook into the claws at Shiki. Definitely repositioning himself in the previous deflection of the sword, he popped the second hook and clawed it as well. Then, without moment of delay, he unleashed the attack, kicking it and squared it after the Gunzo's stomach. Gunzo bent bent over the upper body, and flees in the trim of the flicks away.
ホームラン宣言
From behind, Shiki could hear them in the iron pipe displaying into the air. Turning his way, he lifted the blade in a single arm, blocking the strike. He realized to put a considerable force into his swing. However, it slighted the click of his tongue. Shiki puts in another hand and it halted it well. It barely managed to sweep into the iron pipe beside. Gunzo looked at his look at the claw and the rage let out a joy cry. Akira, for a moment, found himself spellbound and the his charge of the blows. While Shiki's ability to hold on against the Insecures was particularly unthinkable, the Insecures was also quite an anomaly. Judging by the look of their face, they were as thrilled and enjoying themselves as like all the game. Without a trace of the fear of life to the limb, it simply purely indulged in his game of the kill to be killed. It's already like the children engaged in the game of the tag. The bizarre particular stunned Akira until finally abruptly he returned to his sense. The Insecures were totally caught up with this game with Shiki, which is the Shiki forces would have been the only cures at that moment. This, Akira thought, could be the opening has been looking for the getaway. He was a reflected retreat nonetheless. Instead of it telling to him to ring his ear, growling louder by the moment. He didn't know why exactly what he was also didn't have to do this. Really thinking about it. Ultimately, just like he knew could afford it and caught, not by the Insecures or not by Shiki. With the tip of the clutch to force the step of the legs to move, bending the full sprint in the opposite direction. The clash of the metal echoes intensely and behind him. He briefly considered a glimpse in the back and then ultimately decided against it. Right now, it was just to keep running. Oh my god. This is insane. Listen to the sound of guns and mad laughter. Akira ran as fast as he could towards the main street. Dang. That's something scary. That was so scary. What now? You again. Have you done playing tag? The sharp red startle was unmistakable. It was Shiki. Shiki was shows his pace as he approached. Kira felt it suffocating as the killer infinite flood of the air. Just a moment ago, had been locking in a Mortal Kombat with the Insecures. How could it be here already? Feeling both confused and anxious, Akira utterly frowned at his brow.
逃げられるとでも思ったか
The simple sentences, yet the descended chills down Akira's spine.
処刑人は
Did you stop playing tag?
相手にするだけ時間の無駄だ
Oh. Okay. Akira suddenly looked back to those red eyes. He was hoping to never see them again. Never to his eyes, Shiki arrived to the left side of the tip of the scabbard, and he holding his dragon and Akira's at his cheek. As he looked down, he scabbard and lifted his chin, wanted to gaze upward. upward and the president against the wall.
ザコはザコらしく道の脇で這いつくばっていればいい。
I'm getting a little worried.
遅い。
Put down.
無駄なあがきだと言ったはずだ。バカにはわからんか。
Shiki without missing the beat. Expertly his words, it cut through the intense air. The taste of the blood slowly spread it through Akira's mouth. While pressing the cheek back to his hand, he gently straightened up. The racing of fury within and overload his self-control. He had enough. He could bear no more.
なんだよ。
His trembling fist was clenched
目
tight.
障りなら殺せばいいだろう。それとも雑魚をいたぶるような趣味でもあるのかあんた。
Please do. Because I've been suffering for trust issues.
わめくな。
ん？
貴様には聞きたいことがある。
Huh?
だが。
I'm listening. But I don't like to trust issues. I gotta listen carefully. Shiki's lips curved into his weary smile.
叶わないと知りながらなぜ歯向かう。それこそ殺せと短歌を切るほどな。
Something other than murderous intent to figure into Shiki's eyes for a moment. He looks amused, which only served his piss off Akira even further.
あんたみたいな自分以外はクズだとしか思ってないような人間はヘドが出る。
It sounds like you have a bad case of toxic feelings towards.
俺も貴様のような身の程知らずは奈落の底まで突き落としてやりたくなる。
Akira tried to get up, but stopped. He had forgot about the blade of his throat. Akira steered to those let out a little dull laugh.
貴様のような輩はすぐに殺してしまっては面白くない。その生意気な目がいつまで続くか試してやる。
Akira gazed at a mannequin standing and staring before him. He found a burning gaze. Shiki turns his face slightly away out of the speck, and it commented that he couldn't discern.
いい度胸だ。
Shiki grinned coldly and credited Akira shaking the tip of the sword with a sharp, pain-blooded Akira sense.
黒と見まごうほどの血を流したことがないだろう。骨が肉と皮を突き破る音も知らないのだろう。ぬるま湯の中で拳を振るい、己の力を過信する。所詮はそんなところだろうな。
His words are quite a matter of fact. Yet the statement is sent to the deepest of chills down Akira's spine. Shiki slowly retracted the sword and trained it on Akira, and the gaze never left him. Silence stretched out between them. No words exchanged, yet to Akira stares unwilling. Eventually, Shiki gives a slight smile and turned away. He vanished into the gloom of the darkness, alley out of the sight. But even when Shiki's gone, Akira gazed and remained a flex of the darkness. He disappeared into the fingertips, brushed against the warmth of the flush of his cheek. The sun has been sent since the night about the fall of the Toshima. Akira headed to the west down to the main street, catched to the side of the hotel facade. Stepping through into the broken automatic door, he entered the lobby. He sees the bar visited them before. Before the crowd of this is hanging around the new destroy the club for the start for the drifting. Anybody could that be next? Who is the responsible?
青いつなぎだってさ。
無差別殺人の？
ああ、見たやつがいたらしい。けどな、青いつなぎだけじゃわかんねえよな。
昨日もあっただろう。これで何人目だっけが。
知らねえけど10人は超えてるぜ。昨日のは東っつったかな。
Well, who knows for that? No matter how much he searched every single alley in the east side of town, he couldn't find a trace of Cascade. Of course, Akira couldn't be sure the man that people were talking about the hotel was Cascade in the first place. Exhausted, he slumped against the wall of the building. He knew that line that he searched and wasn't going to lead to any results. Man, it's gonna rain. Basically, it's kind of like your fault in this one in the previously in walkthrough 10. So I was kind of in the previous walkthrough 9 to 10. I said I kind of write you. It's your fault for this. Because I already know that scene because of that. Oh, you gotta be kidding me! Shiki, where are you right now? I will not get to say it. Okay. Because I already know that scene. It is what it is. Huh? Something heavy splashes by the pillow in front of him. All at once, the sound of the slide of the world coming and rushing back, pulling Akira's back into his senses. The water running down into his body lighted it gently, yet he felt that it struck the mud. Oh! Whoa. Someone's gonna fight back? Please, you're my only hope, please! I just want to wrap this up! Keisuke and Shiki, they were fighting? I remember this anime. There was an unused of the continuity in this one. Unconsciously, Akira propped himself into his own elbows. The rain felt like ice running down his back. Through the chills, he couldn't just focus on it or nothing than to cabinet in front of him. Involved in the vein of the rain, Keisuke felt swayed uncertainly. He abandoned his knees. He coveted violently into the katanas on him. At least a second, Keisuke adjusted his leap to the side. He was clutched at his throat, hacking it violently. There was an able to ground it as bet like a beast. Threading through the gaps of the rain, it went way to Akira's ears. Keisuke, after his coughing fit, slipped to the jacket of his feet, dashes away the alley behind him. Shiki did not pursue. The splash of the footsteps faded to the distance. Akira had to go after him. But despite the strong resolve to do this, the limbs of the heavy needed it and refused to incorporate. But he had to chase him now before he got away. Now. Something sharper than silver glinted in front of his eyes. The katana sinking it down to the ground. Tracing against the torso, he found that the pair of the cool of the prism eyes, looming overhead and against the backdrop of the damp night. Within the chill of the rain, the familiar impression against the face of the itself upward Akira. Akira meets Shiki's gaze. This was the man that Elisa wanted to see. He has no reason to give it a chase and dispelling it into the mist. You hear him. You hear me? I just want to end this quickly. But I can't hear it because of the rain. He wishes the rain would have just melt away with both of them. Right then and there, maybe the cause of the blood might be purified. You shouldn't. I hope. He heard the sound of the air of the slicing overhead. The Shiki blade was thrusting before his eyes and silvery glance. His voice, colder than any blade, descended on him in the rain. Akira that he realized he was talking about the rain. Akira couldn't find the words to answer. He could only follow the trails of the rain, and his eyes were streaking down to the blade thrusting him before. His words was not like hot iron in his ears, jolting him in the back of his senses. The cold smoke running across the Shiki's slender lips. The rain had the direction of his hair, and Shiki said there nothing to dampen the Akira's fury. Raising up, he clenches his fists as tightly in the bends of the palm Shiki. But just as soon as he has heavy blood that struck into his belly, intensely sending the shock waves in the body, his face is controlled in response. And the hard sole of the boots rumbled comes crashing down on his head, making him a groan in agony. He was a vision of buried, blurred. Only the sharp red eyes remained in focus. He imagined himself, lifeless with his head split open in the pomegranate, further into the thought of his mind and strained to run. But then, he thought it might be so bad at the end of the year. And now. Shiki's memory of those words were ringing in Akira's mind. The pressure that had faded into quickly replaced the sensation of weightlessness. He was a father face to face with Shiki, who pulls him up and divided his collar. Akira mutters without any making eye contact. Shiki without a word, releasing the grip of Akira's collar. Akira was violent and supported the palm of the Chimera's into the deep of the soak of the ground. He wanted the death would taste sweet, but it just didn't entering that thought, and the shadows pressing over his eyes. And Shiki's icy glare suddenly fills Akira's vision once more. Before even a moment, the process was happening. The other man was trying to open the jacket and push it in his shirt. The rain is cold as Shiki gazes struck at his bare skin. Shiki's hand is set it across his chest. Without fully comprehending what has happened, what was being done to him, Akira is trying to push him off.
好きにしろと言ったのは貴様だろう。 ふぬけにはふぬけに見合った扱いをしてやる。
The sounds of the breath in the moment were drowned out of the rain.
やめろ
Like a needle from the heavens, in the rain it appears in Akira's wide open eyes. He was seeing red with anger. With every ounce of the strength and funnel into the slightly clenches his fist. He struck at Shiki's cheek and then roughened the blow. Gasping for the air, Akira's eyes remained to the wide open of fixed and the most of the disbanded gaze that couldn't miss on Shiki's. Shiki's turned his face away from the momentum of the blow, but soon a cold smirk crept into his lips. His fierce red eyes, carving in the wire light, completely captured Akira.
どうした？もう終わりか。
Even knowing as it's been taunted, he could have no longer contained the pent of the rage. Of course, that he has heavy being. Intent to destroy Shiki again. Akira's fist is caught in the midair. Without missing the beat, he threw the fist in it, but Shiki cleanly dodged and slided and tilted his body. He finally pressed it down at Akira's neck and once and handed.
このまま喉笛を潰してやろうか。
Emotion surged into the muddy torrent, obscuring all reasons. Nothing else was visible to the Akira, save from the red eyes before him. I'm saving this. Just in case. I'm saving it. Okay. Okay. What are my options about to do? Okay. Okay, I saved that one. There might be the few options of this one. Save 3 because there was a bad end. Oh. But it says I had to give up. That's ending number 3 in this one. I think I'm about to do bad end in this one.
And then you can call it.
Yeah. This is the only beginning, but bad end. So, here's what I'm gonna do the option of this one. I might do... So, ending one is, after you complete it, you will open a new dialogue with this one. I had to. So, I'm gonna do give up. That's ending number 3. You see what's happened. I'm gonna give up. Okay. Lifted by the throat, Akira was slammed into the ground twice in quick successions. His vision took it violently. Yet still, he tried to claw at his arms. Another blow, and a heavy dull of pain, filling him in the form of his stomach. His body tensed and nausea flooded his body.
まったく面白い。
He thought what he heard Shiki's whisper something. Throughout his ear rang to the pain. What's gonna happen? Shiki's waited and lifted his body. Overwhelming arrangement to disappear almost made him loose. Slighted him, so Akira was drained to the strain, with both body and his soul. His body, as if only catch up with his pain now, dropping to live agony. He is struggling to feel the vision registered there, nothing of the shadow moving within in the rain. With it, he finally began to grant death. Any such Hope was swiftly to miraculously shattered. He felt like it was floating. I guess you give up now. Suddenly, as he walked in front of the dream, Akira understood that the situation began to panic. Oh, this is new. This is new.
Oh, that's new.
Tearing my arms after I give up for fighting. He had been scooped off to the ground by Shiki.
なぜ
黙れ。
Shiki spoke the one word with a firm, commanding tone. His glossy black hair was wet, almost depicted looking of those of prism eyes. It has been heralded for harboring intensity, a kind of a bird of prey. Now the shonen no hint it is such a deadly sin. In this place, there is an odd sort of lucidity, the bone of clean and a calm light. Season of the tornado, unlike that he had felt Akira beneath it caught in his throat.
今からお前の所有者はこの俺だ。
Yeah, I think you end up with this situation. I think when you say give up, I think you're keeping it rewarded. Hear me out in this one. Imagine Dan Hunt and Blade in this situation. This might be more accurate. You can't make this up. I will. His tone was flat. This might be the new CG for this one. Okay. He spoke as he had promptly shut down to the argument, any argument. As if this was an absolute, inevitable truth. No can do.
好きにしろと言ったのはお前だ。何度も言わせるな。
This is what I want. I just want to be lived to suffer. Hooray for me. This is what I want. Waiting for this. And with that, there is no further room for the discussions. Shiki slowly began to walk to the Kira in his arms. There's no turn back to your friend is no longer. You're staying with him. You kind of this is what he deserve. This is what you deserved.
Kind of.
There's no turn back, Akira. It's for your own good.
Yeah.
Because it's your fault.
Definitely.
With an ruthless downpour, it spread that it calls out his name to his childhood friend. It feels like his hard work being crushed. Heartbroken. This is what happens, your fault. But soon, he realized it was left out with no choice to resign him to the fate of the sections was chilled by the rain. Screams after he might, he whipping and falling to the death of the ears. The bed sprung increased and allows Akira to roughly down to the end of the bed. The sheets of the stays dry long to soak up the moisture of his drenched body. I have a bad feeling about this. Just to clarify, this is old age patch.
その生意気な目がいつまで持つか。
It was so hard to tell the true meaning of the behind of these words. The sadistic smile told him it was bad news. His clothes were drenched, jacket still open and his t-shirts rolled up. Ooh. When Shiki used her hand to touch the exposed skin, he jumps in and shows how the edge of the heat was. As he mocks him, Shiki chuckles deeply. Ashamed of frustration, Akira clenches his teeth. Shiki ponders traces his swelling in his muscles, drenched in his chest and abdomen. He's finally came out arrested at the depth of his novel. There is no doubt that Shiki was plotting something humiliating. They're trying to do a wagon out of the underneath him. His shoulders are pinned into the bed.
なせ
それで本当に話すバカがいたらお目にかかりたいものだな。
Shiki Well sharpened his lips twisted a curl of the delighted expressions, or something that they enjoyed decided to capture the prey struggling. Shiki was reaching into the nightstand and grabbing a brown glass of bottle, to pull out of the cork and spat out away, and now into the eyes suggested. The amber liquid had transcended into the curious exposed his chest. It streamed down the lip out and splashing around and emitted a suffocating sweet scent. The curious scrunches up at his eyebrows, sticking under the harsh alcohol
その
smell.
下で味わってみるか。
Huh?
やめ
He attempted to turn his face away, but Shiki grabs his jaw and forced it in the mouth. He thrusted the bottle between his lips. Oh, dang. In intense the bit of the fire floated in his mouth, provoking in a violent coughing fit.
いいざまだな。
Huh? I'm a little scared.
苦しそうだな。
Yes.
何を
すべて話せ。お前が知っていることを。
Everything he knew. Begins there's meeting. Turn his way. Akira closes his eyes tight and
目を
shut.
背けるな。
From the depth of the searing heat, his voice is cold as chill. The water struck in his ear. Shiki sees into the jaw, forcing him to look up. His eyes are cracked open, and he is just like the destructive what he saw. Those red eyes stared at
話
him.
せ。
やだ
Of course, he had no irritation to complain, yet he couldn't bring himself to look away.
お前のすべてを所有するのは俺だ。逃れることはできない。痛みで感じるのか、貴様の体は。
Oh man. There is no escape from this one.
奈落の底へ引きずり落としてやろう。
Why? He wondered. The moment the fear disappeared, the transmission in his chest dropped into something else. As he reacted to his words, he couldn't close his eyes. He couldn't still see his heart and fellow words being torn to some. This is what a punishment. He reasoned. The night was only just getting started. The rain showed no sign of stopping. Kira found himself curled up into the bed, seems having drifted without even realize it. He had lain in a state of the subconscious. His arms over they pulled upwards sharply. Confused, he looked up to find Shiki standing by the side of the bed.
来い。
Huh? Without any twitching it in his follow his issues command, he began to forcefully drag into Akira's out of the bed.
話せよ
Damn! Shiki responds to the strain of his sharp slap across Akira's cheek. And his sharp strain stings and the heat it is spread in his cheek and in his lips. His glows as the other man's in anger. Their gaze meet, unyielding, but he did a little make Shiki's loosen in his grip. Akira's arms is steady, dragging it into the door and in the back. That can't be good.
何やって。
Oh boy. Just remember, this is a censor version of this one. Just a TW1, it'll be a saw ahead of this one. This is a censor of this one. If you play uncensored, you know, you know. You know, you know. I'm gonna let it stay silent about what happened. Enjoy the suffering, everyone.
音を上げるにはまだ早いぞ。音を上げるにはまだ早いと言ったはずだが、聞こえなかったか。話す気になったか。
何を。
お前の知っていることだ。
知らない。話すことなんてない。
生意気だな。話せばすぐに楽になる。
本当に何も知らん。
それともそんなに痛めつけられることが好きなのか。望み通りに与えてやる。痛みをな。
No, no, this is not good. Well, the black rain clouds presently shuttered the sky, making it nearly impossible to distinguish the day and the night outside. He vaguely guessed it might be just past noon. For that moment, Akira was alone in the room. Shiki had to step out. Yet the door seems hadn't been locked in the outside. Nor did Akira has been tied up or anything of the sort. He could have escaped. As soon as that thought occurred to him, he rose to his feet, flexing it against the door leading into the hall. However, he spent so much time in the bed, his feet that felt an alien against the floor, unsteady and uncertain that the cold concrete steeping into the cold floor of the beam. When he finally reached out the door, it opened in a surprisingly just a simple twist of the push of his handle. It could be really this easy. Dumbfounded in the perspective of the freedom of the close of the hand, neither user started to running in the tip of his own feet. Braced against the wall, at least managed to avoid collapsing under the ground, but this is the body that expected to hit. He could have moved. Perhaps he could have moved around, a little bit of blood flowing again. He concerned for the moment, but at the end, he was just turning around and went back to his room. It was just as if he had been in Delta would have blown right into the strike. His spirit was dampened beyond a redemption in the suckers of his own body. Under no normal circumstances, he had been close to the freedom need to be. If he need to be, he might be able to choose to break it of the window in the other order to escape. Rather than he ran and not, Shiki would win. Shiki would have their last laugh. Yeah. Well, how long would kids stay like that? Well, seeing through the anger Akira stood up and yanked his sheet into bed, finding the fabric enveloped in a dark brown stain under their folds. The abuse of his body endured came back to his incident into the vivid detail. He had floated in fear and pain and sense that something made it so much worse. When Shiki returned, he felt it his ear all over again. His palm trembling in the borders, deepened in the blanket and the clot of the blood. It clutched his other nonsense and waited in the commitment. However, even in this night darkness, it has been a little bit in the other world, the other side, outside, and the window began to fade it down that she could head and come back. A whole day had passed. Meanwhile, the rain just would have stopped. Along the empty room, his anger towards Shiki smothered within his evil lay on the bed. But his anger began to subside. Such a dreaded emotion is always distant and burned out before too long. And given no question is concerned instead, for the life of him, Kira couldn't figure out what Shiki was thinking. We just knew that there was nothing to perceive in the dread of being chased down. He would have been at a plenty time to get away by now. Could it been? Could it have been Shiki intention to let him escape all along? I don't know. He's still not returned yet. Still waiting. Man, he didn't return that either? It probably. Leaning against the door, Kira crosses down under the intense and the mechanical sounds that echoed in his ear. He hears something familiar footsteps, so he has to return. Yeah, he's returned for that.
まだまだしつけが必要なようだな。
Yeah. How long you been out for a long time? 2 hours on the next day. His voice was gentle, like a kind of might be wanted to calm the child. Yet it was also mocking. Shiki seems to fully aware that Kira entered the conflict naturally, given that it huddled down the voice to escape. He stood to the left, bringing in his ears. Akira raised his eyes. If they were meeting, Shiki's the crystal beaming of his self-assert. But close to the TV, he glares.
それともそうされるのが好きでわざとやっているのか。
違う。
With a drum of the sword, Shiki seized Akira's arm.
触るな。
He tried to dodge him, but Shiki grabs his hair and forces it to the face of War. Once again, he was captivated by the cold smirk.
そろそろ思い知っただろ。主が誰であるか。
Overwhelming his whisper, he closes his eyes. His hand slipped beneath his ear, gently caressed it and napped at his neck. Listened to his gesture alone, yet a certain marvelous subsided his core.
心までは屈しないか。それもまた面白い。
Shiki's calm in his face, certain by beauty to it. And Akira finally understood. He couldn't fight this. Still.
嫌だ。
His horrors of the voice echoed dully down under the contorted, vital and medium and mute, a chuckle with the red-eyed man. He was thirsty. How long has it been? Akira laid face up to the bed and started to blanket like the ceiling. It was that it has been abandoned and escorted a dessert. Even never felt thirsty before. To think of this going without satisfying the basic need to the hydration, it could have lead to the profoundest suffering. His life, food, drink, and trivial matters. This is a unprecedented sensation. It was a child that he did it, no doubt to the situation worse too. For Shiki was just toying with kids to play with. He flushed to remember too bitterly, and a burning wave of shame spread under the skin and the grit of his teeth. If it was time to stood still, the only outside information that fades to the strange in the room. Glancing over to the sky, he could see through the window. But in Toshima, where clear skies are virtually knocked existence has told him little. He thought it must be several days since he was brought here. With such a dull grasp of the passage prototype, he couldn't be certain. Despite the cruelty Shiki subjects to him too, he didn't also assure to provide him with the food or drink. Every time Shiki came back from the excursus, he brought back something kind of food. Usually it was solid, sauce and water, as a water. What now? Even in the case that they changed it about his thirst. He's not being seen. Perhaps it was an endure somehow. It wasn't a bait of the his friend's eyes of thirsty only intensified. He did not square any energy to mind of the body already weakened. But perhaps it was worth a try. Just once. He stretched out to the left of as far as he go. His fingertips almost touched it. Perhaps he couldn't reach it. The pain of the gun was in the hole in the inside of his chest, and his hands into the cord and stretching his arms out for it, but it still remains out of the reach. Even worse than the force and in the neutral direction, he accidentally coiled to the side of the table. The plastic bottle wobbles to the front of the floor. The water ripples to the inside of the bottle, but it is the sound of his made up throat to clench. Testing the bitter defeat, Akira lets out a sound of irritation and rolled back into the bed. If there was nothing that he could do, wait for Shiki to return. He kept glancing at the door, leading the hallway without any think about it. He began to hope that the diesel rusted at the hanging and the squeaking again. Crack! Now it seems it is longer than it is a man return. He felt disgusted at himself. As he approached the throat of hit his limit, Akira gazed at the dimly ceiling through his pale haze. Afterwards, seeing as entered the sounds of the footsteps long and finally reached his ears. Akira's heated racing and through his tired his best his not body eager well into anticipations. Much as it hated himself, it feels that way. Akira prodded himself into the stare at the door. The man dressed as all black and entered the dim room. Akira was still able to call himself master, but he was a man who was suggesting everything is everyone through the absolute strain of the iron will, Shiki. With his cold, red-eyed Shiki glanced at Akira's, grinning coldly.
どうした物欲しそうな顔をして。そんなに主の帰りが待ち遠しかったか。
Even though his body was blinking to death, and the heat of the fear to search in the response to Shiki's mockery. Shiki walks over to the bed and sneers, leaning the sword against the wall and threw off his coat. The black letter touched the Akira's skin as Shiki grabs his chin. Still chilled by the outside air, he was touched and was cold.
少し暴れたようだな。あれが欲しかったのか。
His red eyes glistened their way to his plastic bottle, falling on the side of the table into the floor, as Akira thought it had been set up. He couldn't help but cursed at his own foolishness and falling into the trap, and he saw through it.
乾いているのだろう。欲しいなら欲しいと素直にねだってみろ。そうすれば考えてやらなくもない。
Shiki tilted his head. An irritating smile on his lips, doing nothing and hid his amusement.
誰があんたなんかに。
Shiki smiles, winding as he released Akira's chin and picked up to the plastic bottle it being on his side of the table. He gave it a shake that caused it to polish, and Akira threw the bottle into his body, swallowed and
欲しい
replaced.
か。
Of course, he had no intention to say did he, but he knew that despite resisting him just as much Shiki wanted to see it. Knowing that Dado was winning or made it be even more frustrating. He was refused to say anything. Shiki suddenly twisted his bottle cap open.
これも必要ないな。
He said, turning the bottle upside down. With a gentle sound of splashing, the water pours into the ground. It feels like the throat close enough. It's so bad at his thirst. The sound of the water in his ear tortured. He wanted to leap out of his fresh water. He poured down his throat instead. He turned his face around as opposed to such
辛
thoughts.
そうだな。
The sound of the running of water coming from the stop, a deep chuckle of the fowl. Then Akira heard the rustle of the light fabric. As Akira turned back to look at him, he saw Shiki strips off of his gloves and the barrel that extended towards him. As he gave him the puzzling frown, Shiki held to the bottle almost gracefully and poured it into his bare hands and walked it to the Akira's side, right in front of him, to clear the water dripping into between his man's fingers. At least, Akira understood what the deranged, ignorant of the man who wants of him.
ど
Oh,
うした。
new
欲
scene.
しいんだろ
Oh, I get chained because of that. There's no turn back. With the twisted gleams of the pleasure of his red eyes, Shiki lets out the water, trickles in between his couple of fingers over his Akira's hand. This is the warmth of the across of Akira's forehead, lids his eyelids, and the Shiki to look warm. Yet the warm water to manage to swallow is surprisingly sweet. Having tasted a little, Akira's drained out of the stomach and immediately begged for more. As if it seems through that Akira's thought that the Shiki smiles.
う。ほら、早くしないとなくなるぞ。
He's already spilled out half of the bottle containing of the floor earlier. The center water remains and it trickled down to the Shiki's hand is already in front of him. No matter how much the miner tried to resist, he couldn't endure it any longer. Feeling the part of his shattered at his bit of the once again, Akira moved his face closer to Shiki's hand. Seeking the water, he slowly opened his mouth. Finally, the drop of the water dripped into the bridge of the tongue. It was barely sweet. The water swung into the bird before he knew, and he had taken Shiki's fingers into his mouth. Akira pushed into the feeling of humiliation and back into the mind and tried to not to think.
うまくやってみろ。そうすれば解放してやる。
Just still drink water for that. What is it this time? But it's only in a moment. Shiki was quickly closed his eyes, pushing the curious
バカ
away.
バカしい。
He mutters dismally with a growl. Laying on the bed and being pushed away, Akira just watching the other man. Things seem a bit different, but there's only for the moment.
なんなんだよ。
Akira's muttered without thinking, and Shiki glanced back at him. When the odd feeling of this incident seems a murdered illusion, and there was the same old Shiki. He carries the glass water from the bottle. Akira without nothing world. Closing his eyes, block out of the world of the water, splashes his face into the darkness. And hearing it dry the sound of plastic bottle rolling across the floor, creaking at the bed inside him. Startlingly, he tied him into the handcuffs, and then right into the head and stopped him. With a pulse near, Shiki could climb into the bed and pinned down. Oh my goodness. That's not good.
触るな。
That's not good.
まだ満たされていないだろう。思う存分与えてやる。
誰が欲しいなんて。
そんなに飢えた目をしているのにか。
This is not good.
お前の主は誰だ。
Oh, I'm scared. No one could tell him what the existence of the endless maze was. There is no choice but to keep walking. Time fade away, and the room and the man before him becomes Akira's entire world. To control his without losing himself, if that was Shiki's desires. Then it's succumb or not succumb. Maybe it actually is to be the same thing. He was disheartened at his absolute despair for little conclusions. But whatever choices they have, things would never go his way. And he had admitted to the escape gradually weakened. Perhaps everything is set from the stone for the moment. Yes, for the moment it was captivating from the red eyes. It was no turn back now. So it cut off for the and it's a very scene in this one. So I gotta see it. He's bad end. So I think I'm his personal pet for that. So we hope. Well, I think we stop and point on this one. Let me exit. I'm gonna stop and point on this one. So we're finally done with this. I'll turn off or I'll go upload on YouTube.